We'll go and get started. The Committee on General Government Operations. Okay. The Committee on General Government Operations, Federal, Foreign, and Regional Affairs now convenes this hearing. In accordance with the Open Government Law, public notices for today's proceedings were sent to the media on February 10th, 2017, and again on February 17th, 2017. For the record, today is Monday, February 20th, 2017, and the time is now 10:34 in the morning. The committee will hear and accept testimony, both oral and written, on the following items. First on the agenda, we have Bill number 5-34 COR, introduced by Senator Frank Aguon Jr., an act to repeal subsection 6206.1 of Article 2 of Chapter 6, Title 4, Guam Code Annotated, relative to delinking MAGA'LÅHEN GUÅHAN and SEGUNDU na MAGA'LÅHEN GUÅHAN from the salaries of directors and deputy directors. We have Bill number 6-34 COR, introduced by Senator Frank Aguon, an act to amend subsection 6210.1 of Article 2 of Chapter 6, Title 4, Guam Code Annotated, relative to effective date for salary changes for elected officials. And last on the agenda, we have Resolution number 27-34 COR, introduced by myself, Senator Nicolas, relative to recognizing the We the People project for advancing voting rights for the people of Guam and other territories by representing Luis Segovia and the other plaintiffs in Segovia versus Chicago Board of Elections and Commissioners, and does further commend them for advocating for the voting rights of the people of Guam, the other territories, and the District of Columbia. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the senators who have joined us this morning. To my immediate left is our Vice Speaker, Senator Therese Terlahi. To her immediate left is Senator Frank Aguon Jr. To his immediate left is Senator Jim Espadon. And to his immediate left is our Legislative Secretary, Mr. Regine Bisco-Lee. To my immediate right is our Senator Tilly Nelson and Senator Tom Atta. Thank you all for joining me this morning. We'll go ahead and get right into it, and I'll go ahead and yield the floor to Bill number 5-34 COR, Senator Frank Aguon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to you and to our fellow colleagues and those who are in the audience. Bill number 5-34 COR is a companion piece of legislation when I had initially introduced Bill number 4, which would repeal the pay raises for the governor, the lieutenant governor, as well as the senators. One of the provisions in law restricts any individual serving as director or deputy director to exceed the governor's compensation. And Mr. Chairman, a few nights ago, we had an opportunity to be able to listen to members of the community who had shared with us that they felt very strongly that the compensation for the directors and the cabinet members really should be reflective of the recruitment of key personnel who have additional expertise to offer to the people of Guam. So in this case, this is a companion piece of legislation which would delete the provision of law that ties in the salary for directors and deputy directors with the chief executive as well as the lieutenant governor. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for providing public hearing this morning.
Thank you, Senator Aguon. On Bill 5, we have signed up Mr. Vince Ariola, who is here today representing, in his capacity as the Deputy Director of the Department of Administration. Vince, please join us. We also have written testimony that's been transmitted from the Mayor and Vice Mayor of Barrigada. And their testimony is actually quite interesting. It's with respect to elected and appointed officials' compensation commission, and they have even submitted to the committee a draft bill just for the committee's consideration. And given the unique proposal of the mayor and vice mayor of Barrigada, I'll go ahead and read into the record what they have transmitted so that the committee and the public can be fully aware of what their suggestion is that they transmitted to the committee. From the municipality of Barrigada, the mayor and vice mayor writes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, buenas and hapare para todos hamzu, Vice Mayor Jesse Bautista and I, together with members of the Barrigada Municipal Planning Council, submit this testimony to express our opposition to Bill numbers 5 and 6, and Bills numbers 6 and 11, and any other legislation to further piecemeal salary increases within the government of Guam. Once again, we reiterate our position that introduction of this legislation and any other legislation pertaining to the salaries of public officials shows the callous disregard for salaries provided to our elected and appointed officials. During your committee hearing on Bill number 204-33 affecting elected and appointed official compensation held on November 10, 2015, Vice Mayor Bautista and I personally challenged you to walk in our shoes, that you and your committee can have a better understanding of what our constituents demand from us. It's sad to say that our challenge went unanswered. As chairman, members of the committee, now is not the time to argue over salaries of elected and appointed officials. Now is the time when we should be doing the following for our island's continued growth. We should be meeting, they have a list of bullet points here. We should be meeting, working, and strategizing with you, our Congresswoman, and our governor and cabinet members on how to best capture positive programs from President Trump and his administration. We should be working together to ensure that the requests of our construction companies before the federal courts are supported and our requests to be answered so that the buildup can move forward to benefit not only the military side of the fence, but more importantly, Hita ni Tautatano. We should be working together with the governor and his officials, as well as our Congresswoman, to ensure the annual payments in lieu of taxes, payment to Guam, are increased. We should be working together with the Guam Economic Development and Commerce Authority and the Governor's Office relative to the issuance of limited obligation highway bonds that we need for capital improvement of village streets and road projects. We should be working towards raising the minimum wage based on the findings of the Economic Impact Study on the 2015 minimum wage increase. We should be working together so that we can present a unified petition to increase the annual appropriation for Compact Impact Aid to help defray the cost of services as a result of an increased demand on our health, educational, social, and public safety services, and for infrastructure related to such services due to the residency of migrants from the freely associated states. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, before we move on, let's get one thing straight. The mayors and vice mayors of Guam are elected officials of Guam pursuant to Title III of the Guam Code Annotated. Why are we being separated from the other elected officials? Sahafa. Is it because the salary structure becomes skewed? A closer look reveals the following, and then they have a chart they've presented here. In parting, we leave you with our proposal on how best to address the salaries of elected and appointed officials of the government of Guam. We need to establish an elected and appointed officials compensation commission to properly address salaries of elected and appointed officials. Mr. Chairman, the proposed elected and appointed officials compensation commission will meet to reassess the salaries and benefits of all elected and appointed officials. The commission shall be composed of 9 members, of which 5 shall be appointed by the governor with the advice and consent of the legislature, 2 by the mayor's council, 2 by the speaker of the legislature. The composition can be increased or decreased. See Attachment 1, Elected and Appointed Officials Compensation Commission Draft Legislation. Furthermore, all secretarial, logistic support, and supplies for the Commission shall be provided by the Civil Service Commission and the Department of Administration Human Resource Division to ensure that a thorough review of salaries is conducted. The Elected and Appointed Officials Compensation Commission shall, within 1 year from its first meeting, submit its report and recommendations to the Governor, the Speaker of the Legislature, and the President of the Mayor's Council of Guam. An elected and appointed officials compensation commission will be the best vehicle to address salaries so we can proceed to discuss other issues affecting our people. In closing, we once again express our opposition to bills number 5, 6, and 11 and any further legislation to further piecemeal salary increases within the government of Guam. Thank you for your time and attention. Signed, June Blas, Mayor Barragata, and Jesse Bautista, Vice Mayor Barragata. We'll go ahead and yield the floor now to Mr. Vince Ariola for your testimony on behalf of the Department of Administration.
Thank you very much, Senator. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the 34th Guam Legislature and the committee. My name is Vince Ariola, the Deputy Director of the Department of Administration. I'm here to testify on bills number 534 and 634, and basically it's the position of the administration to oppose the passage of both bills. We've had other similar public hearings relative to this same issue, and you know, without going further, we just oppose the passage of both bills and leave everything to the way it's set up right now with the Competitive Wage Act. Thank you very much, Senators. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments for Mr. Ariola? If none, thank you very much, Vince.
Thank you, Senators. Congratulations again. I'm sorry. Should have said that earlier. Congratulations.
Thank you, Vince. That will exhaust the individuals that have signed up to testify on behalf of Bill 5. I'll go ahead and yield the floor now to Senator Aguon for Bill 6.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Bill 6 is -34 COR. Is really a straightforward and a simple piece of legislation. Bill 6S34 removes any appearance of impropriety with elected officials passing legislation that gives themselves a raise by mandating that any increase in salary for the Governor of Guam, the Lieutenant Governor of Guam, and the Senators shall not take effect until after the next election has intervened, next general election has intervened. So, Mr. Chairman, I think that if you take a look at the implementation or the possible implementation of an increase in salaries, once it's supported by the legislative body of the front office, it will not take effect until the subsequent term of the legislature. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Again, the only individual that signed up to testify on behalf of Bill 6 was Mr. Arreola, whose testimony was already registered for the record on both bills, so we'll go ahead and have the committee report reflect that. And also the written testimony from the Barragata Mayor, I believe, was also with respect to Bill 6. And we have no other testimony for either Bill 5 or Bill 6, so we'll go ahead and consider the hearings for Bill 5 and 6 to be concluded, and we'll move on to Resolution 27-34. Just to clarify, while we're having a hearing on a resolution, it's part of our process that if there's a resolution that is of substantive nature, that we're supposed to have a public hearing on it so the community can have an opportunity to comment. Resolution number 27-34 was introduced by myself, and it's relative to recognizing the We the People project for advancing voting rights for the people of Guam and other territories by representing Luis Segovia and other plaintiffs in Segovia versus Chicago Board of Elections Commissions, and does further commend them for advocating for the voting rights of the people of Guam and the other territories and the District of Columbia. I'll go ahead and read the resolution into the record for the benefit of the public. Whereas the We the People project is representing the plaintiffs in Segovia versus Chicago Board of Elections Commissioners, a federal voting rights lawsuit which seeks to expand the right to vote in U.S. territories by arguing that the right to vote as an American should not depend on where you live. The We the People project fights for the day when the 5 million Americans living in U.S. territories and the District of Columbia are treated as full and equal members of the United States. In short, equal rights wherever you live. Contrary to the Supreme Court's decision in the insular cases which establish a doctrine of separate and equal status for Americans in overseas territories, Congress should not have the power to turn constitutional rights on and off in U.S. territories. The goal of the We the People project is to start a new conversation that will elevate these issues to the national level and open the door to new possibilities. The We the People project represents 6 U.S. citizens living in Puerto Rico, Guam, and the U.S. Virgin Islands who are challenging federal and state laws that deny them the right to vote for president and voting representation in Congress, while protecting full enjoyment of the right to vote for citizens living in other U.S. territories as well as in foreign countries. Guam-based veterans organization Iraq, Afghanistan, and Persian Gulf Veterans of the Pacific, and the League of Women Voters of the Virgin Islands are also plaintiffs in the case. Lead plaintiff Luis Segovia, a U.S. citizen who lives in Guam with his family, served an 18-month tour in Iraq with the U.S. Army, a 12-month tour in Afghanistan with the Illinois National Guard, and a 10-month tour in Afghanistan as part of the Guam National Guard. In Iraq, he helped provide security for the 2005 Iraqi elections. He was deployed on his second tour to Afghanistan just months after the 2012 presidential elections, unable to vote for president. Under the Federal Uniformed and Overseas Citizen Absentee Voting Act and Illinois Military and Overseas Voter Empowerment Law, a former resident of Illinois who is now a resident of the Northern Mariana Islands, American Samoa, or a foreign country can continue voting for president and voting representation in Congress in Illinois' absentee ballot. But the plaintiffs, each a former resident of Illinois, have lost full enjoyment of their right to vote by virtue of living in Puerto Rico, Guam, or the U.S. Virgin Islands. The lawsuit is part of a broader effort to advocate for full voting rights for every American, whether one lives in a state, territory, or the District of Columbia. What follows after that is all of the official resolved language of the legislatura that would officially adopt this and further transmit it to the following individuals: Mr. Neil Weir, President and founder of the We the People Project; the Honorable Madeline Z. Bordalio, Guam's delegate to the U.S. Congress; the Honorable Amata C. Ratawagan, American Samoa's delegate to the U.S. Congress; the Honorable Gregorio Kilili C. Sablan, the Northern Marianas Islands delegate to the U.S. Congress; the Honorable Jennifer Gonzalez, Puerto Rico's delegate to Congress; the Honorable Stacy Plaskett, the U.S. Virgin Islands delegate to Congress; the Honorable Eleanor Holmes Norton, District of Columbia, delegate to Congress; and the Honorable Eddie Bazacabo, MAGA'LÅHEN GUÅHAN. As far as individuals signed up to testify, we have none present, but we do have written testimony that has been submitted by Mr. Neil Weir in the form of a research-based editorial that he's transmitting, as well as several opinion pieces that have been transmitted to our local media. One of them was jointly written by himself and Attorney Levin Camacho to the Guam Post on January 1st, 2017. So I'll go ahead and leave those items for the committee members to be able to read at their own earliest opportunity. But this is the resolution that's being introduced to support the efforts of Mr. Weir and the We the People Project in pursuit of our voting rights in the United States. Just to clarify, it's fully understood that we cannot directly vote for president, but what we're hoping is some kind of judicial resolution that would provide us with some kind of electoral college remedy, perhaps, to allow for the people of Guam and the other territories to participate in the presidential election process. So we're hoping that we can pass this resolution in the body to have the official support of the people of Guam and Legislatura behind the efforts of the We the People Project. And since we have no one to testify, I'll go ahead and conclude my presentation on Resolution 27. Senator Aguon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to first of all commend and thank all those who are participating in this particular litigation process, especially Attorney Neil Weir for advocating this. I know that veteran Segovia is the highlight of the really the litigation, and recognizing that he has served alongside and he was stationed here in Guam and also was not able to vote as a result of that. Mr. Chairman, I want to also highlight that many of our veterans over the course of the last 40-some years have participated in significant combat and still reside on Guam, and were not and have not been given the opportunity to be able to vote for the President of the United States. So in addition to veteran Segovia participating in this, I want to also highlight that our fellow veterans who alongside any and all veterans who have participated in combats over the course of from World War II to the Korean War to the Vietnam War to the Persian Gulf to the Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, that our fellow Guam veterans continue to fight alongside these men and women to preserve the Constitution and to preserve the freedom that we all enjoy. So I think that I just wanted to put into the record that we also have our own veterans here at home who deserve to vote, inclusive of all of the respective residents that are being represented by this litigation. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Aguon. Do any of my other colleagues have any statements or comments they'd like to make at this time? Senator Espadon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On this particular piece of this resolution, I have no disagreement with anything that's said here. Actually, my point that I'm trying to make is more of a technical one. On the the extra attachment that was attached to this from Attorney Neil Weir, and I appreciate all the work that he's done. At the very bottom of each page, there is a note that says that this article is a draft and may not be distributed or reproduced in accordance with the publication agreement between the author and the Stetson Law Review. And so at this point, without any, and I realize it was the author of this who actually submitted to us, but if there is an agreement, a publication agreement between the author and the Stetson Law Review, then whether or not this attachment should be included probably should be in question.
I agree, Senator Espadon. What we'll do is it'll be for the benefit of the reading benefit of the senators. However, whether or not we include it in the official committee report will be dependent upon whether or not we're able to clarify this particular section here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Espadon. Any comments? Senator Teresa, Vice Speaker Teresa Lai.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I too commend the attorneys involved in this suit, and of course our veterans. It does point out one of the inequities that our veterans face among many. They face many inequities, as well as the people of Guam. And I just want to put on the record that there was a similar case brought with the plaintiff who was of American Samoan descent, and that the American Samoan government did not agree to this lawsuit. They contested it because this lawsuit has implications, and as we all know, to take care of all of the inequities that Guam faces, we have to take care of our status. And status, piecemealing portions of our status or our negotiations with the United States. I just think we have to take that very, very seriously as a strategy on that the government of Guam has to take that very seriously, and we have to decide what our strategy is going to be. And I think I just want to put on the record that Samoa had decided that that would not be their strategy. They would not support that lawsuit. They thought that that lawsuit had implications as to what they had already negotiated with the United States or their future negotiations with the United States. So I just want to put that on the record, and I think that Guam too has to consider this very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Speaker. I agree with your sentiments, and yes, the American Samoan state government did not support the original case, and that's why I think it's important for us here in the legislatura to chime in at least one way or the other, because right now the only thing that's floating out there at the federal level is that a particular state government did not support it, and so what might be further extrapolated from that is whether or not the other state governments do, and so I think that we need to address once and for all whether we do, and I think this resolution will give us an opportunity to either add wind beneath the wings of the effort and help mitigate what the American Samoan state government's actions did to the case or not. But I think that at the very least, the people of Guam and the legislature should chime in on the issue. Do any of my other colleagues have any comments? If not, we'll go ahead and conclude the hearing on Resolution 27-34, and that will also exhaust all of the items that we have on today's agenda. The committee will continue to receive testimony on all items heard this morning. Please address any written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operations, Federal, Foreign, and Regional Affairs. Testimony may be submitted via hand delivery to the office of Senator Michael F. Q. Nicolas at the DNA Building, Suite 407, 238 Archbishop Flores Street, Hagåtña, Guam, or at the mailroom of the Legislature Building, 155 Hester Place, Hagåtña, Guam, 96910, and that's only up until February 22nd, after which time we can go ahead and receive any written correspondence to the historic Guam Congress Building, where we should be in the process of moving into. Or the easiest way would be to transmit via email to senator.nicolas@gmail.com. Thank you for your time and attendance at today's hearing. We'll go ahead and adjourn at 10:55 this morning. Thank you very much.